All right, the Toyota Tundra, a truck that's been getting a lot of buzz and press recently because of all of the potential issues and recalls that it's been having. And some people were asking me if I had to buy a full-size truck in today's market, which one would it be? Honestly, I would actually choose the Tundra. And no, I wouldn't necessarily wait for a 2025 either. If I needed a truck, I would just go get this. Why? Because for one, there are significant discounts to be had, not just on this truck, but I know of two others with similarly high discounts, and that is the Ram 1500 and the Silverado/Sierra twins. On all three of these trucks, I know I can save a significant amount of money by purchasing either through Jim or through AutoCompanion, depending on which vehicle you wanted. I'll talk more about that a little bit later, but why would I still go with the Tundra? It's because upon doing further research, I've noticed that a 2024 Tundra on the NHTSA.gov website does not have anywhere near the same level of complaints or recalls as the previous two model years. A 2022 and a 2023 Tundra had like 9 and 10 recalls, but for the 2024, there's only 2 open recalls and they're pretty insignificant. One is for a mislabeled sticker, and the second one is for an unexpected vehicle movement. Apparently, if you have the vehicle in neutral and the brakes are not applied, it'll roll away. I thought that was normal. I thought vehicles are supposed to roll away in neutral, right? But I'm assuming this recall means that if you have the vehicle with the parking brake up and you have it in neutral, it'll still roll away. Perhaps that's what they're referring to. However, I've noticed that for the 2024 Tundras, they're not suffering from the debris in the engine, the axle shafts, there's no issues regarding those things. And that's why I feel like for 2024, Toyota seems to have ironed out the Tundra. But whether they have or not, I would choose the Tundra because I would trust a Toyota service center over a Ram, a Chevy, or a Ford. So we actually used to have a Ram 1500, and we also had the previous generation 2021 Tundra as well, both of which we purchased through brokers. All right, Jim is the largest Toyota broker in the United States, and AutoCompanion is one of the other largest brokers that has a bunch of different manufacturers. So we bought the Ram from AutoCompanion, and it was a phenomenal truck. Loved driving it. Literally the best truck driving experience out on the road. It drove like a GLE Mercedes. No exaggeration. Had an exquisite interior, amazing leather quality. However, when we had a few issues with the truck and we took it in to get it serviced, one was for like the tailgate issue. It would just randomly open, so we were concerned about that. And when we went to the Ram dealership, they were just kind of unprofessional, sort of rude, and displayed a lot of incompetence. Like one guy literally just came out and he just slammed our tailgate multiple times. He just opened and closed it, and he was like, doesn't seem like anything's wrong with it. He didn't bother to plug the vehicle into a code reader to see if there's like an electronic issue, because it is an electronic tailgate, or some other mechanical defect. He didn't bother to do any of that. He just opened and closed it multiple times, and that was that. And then eventually, after we sold the vehicle, the recall came out for it. So I'm sure they have a proper fix for it now, but I'm just saying we did not like that experience. And the other time, I think there was some like vibration with the truck, and we took it into another dealership for service, and again, incompetent, kind of a rude dealership, and some guy drove it and was like, oh, there's nothing wrong with it, or they couldn't replicate the issue. And we just were not thrilled about the service quality coming from Ram. And I'm assuming the same things regarding Ford and Chevy as well. Never had any of their products, but I did go to their dealerships and dealt with their sales department, and it just was not a great experience for me. Very scummy tactics and just a slimy vibe in general. So that's why I'm not a huge fan of the domestic vehicles, in my personal opinion. But again, that's just my opinion and my experience. You might have a phenomenal Ram, Ford, or Chevy dealership near where you live, but where I'm at, yeah, it's been a pretty poor experience for me, as opposed to all the Toyotas that we had in our life. We've never had an issue with maintenance or having issues covered under warranty. The nice Toyota dealers, they typically have like a shuttle service where they pick you up and drop you off. And at least in the past, Toyota vehicles didn't really have as many issues, right? A little bit more simpler vehicles back then. Today, all vehicles are becoming significantly more disposable. And I'm surprised many people are unable to see this. When this new Tundra came out, why would you think that this would be just like the previous generation? We have a twin turbo engine, new transmission, pretty much all the same electronic features that you would find in a S-Class Mercedes. That's what we have now in trucks and even in economy cars. I don't understand why people still think that they can buy these vehicles and hang on to them like some type of family heirloom. It's been over a decade now that even basic economy cars can be optioned up to have similar features to what flagship German luxury cars used to come with. Now, after testing a Tundra back in 2022, I'm going to go over the pros and cons quickly with you so you can become acquainted with this truck and to see if you can live with the compromises that this vehicle has to offer. Then towards the end, I will talk about how you can save between $8,000 to $12,000 on a new Tundra, and along with the savings that can be had on the other trucks I mentioned as well. All right, so back in 2022, I test drove a 1794 edition with the air suspension in the back. Honestly, this was not the trim that I enjoyed driving, okay? I would skip that air suspension. Maybe it rides better with weight on it, but regardless, it just felt off. But I loved the twin turbo V6. That was a true pleasure to experience out on the road, and they even tuned it to sound really good when you step on the throttle. And out on the streets, it just felt very effortless, and it felt quicker than any of the naturally aspirated competition. It just surges off. The 10-speed automatic, that was doing a pretty good job in shifting. However, in 2022, I did notice that at certain times, if you're at a stop and you just punch the throttle, there can be like a huge delay up to a second long. You can just be waiting there at a stop with nothing happening. So hopefully at this point, they have tuned and tweaked that to respond a little bit better. And some of the other things I noticed was the interior quality had dropped compared to the previous generation. A lot of people, they would complain and make fun of the previous dinosaur models, right? Like the 2021 Tundra for being old, archaic, and having a nasty interior space. Well, the reality was the 2021 Tundra that we had a solid, rigid cabin space. Yes, it may have been plastic and all of that, but it was bolted together properly. It felt good, it felt indestructible. Although the new Tundra interior looks very fancy, probably the nicest looking truck interior, however, the touch points didn't feel that great. Some people did report that for 2023 and up, the interior quality had improved. It felt a little bit more solid, and I'm happy to report that, so that's good. But other things I noticed, the rear seats, even as a crew cab, was more constricted than the 2021 Tundra. There seemed to be less legroom and headroom than before. That was a bit unfortunate. Don't get me wrong, you can still be a tall adult and fit back there. I'm just saying you're not stretching out like you would be with the competitor vehicles in this crew cab Tundra. All right, so those were like the main cons I noticed. Things I loved, well, I already mentioned the drivetrain. That was amazing in my opinion. I like the new infotainment screen. Once again, the interior layout looks good, and I like the bed. I like the fact that you don't have to pay up for an additional bed liner. It comes with that SMC composite material in the bed. We have a lighter tailgate. The truck handles significantly better than it did before. This now handles very similar to like a Ram 1500, so that's great. I love that. And probably the best attribute of all is the fact that the Tundra is one of the safest full-size trucks on the market today. It went from being one of the least safest trucks in a crash test to now being one of the best, according to IIHS. So that's phenomenal. I do appreciate that. And as mentioned before, I feel like a Toyota service center is going to take better care of you than the competitors, all right? And it seems like if you buy a 24 model year, that should be one of the more ironed out vehicles that you can get. Now, to address the ride quality, I would go with an SR5 model with 18-inch wheels and the TRD off-road package. With that setup, that should end up being the softest riding Tundra available. And the way I spec'd it out, that exact Tundra would cost about $59,000 for a 4x4 crew cab with the 5.5-foot bed. And I added the top of the line TRD off-road premium package, which was about $6,500. And I added in like all-weather floor liners and some alloy wheel locks, and everything with Destination came out to be about $59,000. That's how I would spec it out. And if you buy this from Jim, you'll get about $8,000 off MSRP. So for $51,000, that is still the best value proposition in the full-size truck lineup. To get such a well-equipped, cool-looking truck for that type of price, yeah, that's the way I would go. But who is Jim? Why should you buy from him? Well, as mentioned before, Jim is one of the largest brokers in the United States regarding Toyotas. He has dealerships in Pennsylvania and in California, but he can ship nationwide. That's how we bought our 2021 Tundra, and that's how we bought my 2024 Toyota 4Runner. I had both of these vehicles shipped to my house, no issues. And on a similarly spec'd SR5 Tundra, like what I mentioned, for $59,000, you get $8,000 off. It's about $51,000. But on higher trims, more expensive vehicles like 1794s and Platinums, he's offering up to like $12,000 off MSRP. And you know, if you have money like that, or if you have a very successful business and you need an expensive truck to, you know, write off against your income or something, then sure, go for it. But for most people, they're going to be better served with the model that I recommended. Or maybe you can go up to a limited with 20-inch wheels just so you can get the JBL audio system. Why is that important? Because the JBL audio system I tested was one of the best truck audio systems I had ever had a pleasure of listening to. So if you love your music and that's important to you, maybe step up to the limited, and that has similar discounts, about $8,000 to $9,000 off, which is good. And I think if you qualify for loyalty, you can get an additional $1,000 off. So that's amazing. So discounts and all of that aside, another reason why purchasing through Jim would be beneficial to you is because you can actually lease these trucks through Toyota Financial Services. And that's really advantageous to those who are living in the Southeast, who are forced to lease or finance through Southeast Toyota Financial. Southeast Toyota Financial sucks. That is one of the worst banks, and there's no flexibility. TFS, that's totally different. If you lease a vehicle through Toyota Financial Services, you can break the lease anytime you want without any consequences. You can sell the vehicle anywhere you want, and they tend to have better, lower interest rate lease deals as well. So on a $59,000 truck with the discounts I talked about, if you did a lease while putting down multiple security deposits, you can lease this truck with taxes and fees included for like $578 a month. The reason why you would put down $5,400 in MSDs is to lower the interest rate of the lease. And at the end of the lease, or if you decide to sell the vehicle early, you will get back that multiple security deposit. So it's not a down payment, it's a refundable deposit that you get back. So that's really powerful to be driving around in such a big, expensive vehicle for like $578 a month. You're building a decent amount of equity in the vehicle while keeping your cash in your bank. Everyone says cash is king. Cash is only king when it's sitting in your savings account or in your retirement account earning interest for you and your family. That's when cash is king, not when you plop it down on a rotting, depreciating, disintegrating vehicle. Then cash is not king. Actually, I'm going to show you something that's pretty cool, just to demonstrate that cash was never king. And cash is only king if it's sitting in your savings account. So let's just pretend that we want to purchase a $50,000 Tundra, but we're going to finance the Tundra. We're not going to take our 50 grand out of the savings account. And let's just say the banker scammed us and our savings account is only getting 2% in interest. All right, instead of getting 4 or 5 like what they advertised. Let's just pretend to play the victim. Let's continue the fear mongering, and let's just say we got scammed by the bank and they're only giving us 2% interest for our 50 grand. And the same banker is going to scam us again because we're going to ask him for a loan to finance a $50,000 Tundra. So he's going to give us a loan for 3% interest for 5 years so we can buy the Tundra. So our money is still sitting in the bank earning 2%, but we borrowed from the same bank at 3% interest to go and finance a new Tundra. In the course of 5 years, if we were to hang on to that loan for the entirety of that 5 years at 3% interest, we would have paid $3,906 in interest to the bank. However, the 50 grand that we had in the savings account, growing at 2% for the same amount of time, 5 years, would have grown to $55,204. So we made $5,204 with our 50 grand sitting in the savings account, but the bank only made $3,906 while charging us more interest. Why is that? How is that possible? That's because that 50 grand was compounding uninterrupted. And that's why it's usually better for you to just leave your money in the bank and just go and borrow cheap money elsewhere. You know, take advantage of the 0% financing or the low interest rate lease. You're better off doing that than plopping all of your cash into a car. Because as you can see, even with a low interest rate, we're making more money. It's more profitable for us than to pay cash. Over the course of 5 years, we made $1,298 by not paying cash for a vehicle. And that's at 2%. Really, today, most banks are paying between 3 to 5% in interest. So really, there's a $4,000 to $10,000 difference between leaving your money in the bank and borrowing cheap money elsewhere. Once again, this is stuff that nobody really shows or teaches you. But this is so crucial to know when you're buying a car. It's almost never profitable to just pay full cash for a vehicle due to the principle of uninterrupted compound interest. Now, I'm going to talk about these other trucks in a moment, but real quick, if you did want to work with Jim, he just has a phone number that you text, and he did say that if you mention my channel, Meyn Motor Group, he'll give you $50 off of the broker fee that he charges. So that's something you have to keep in mind. He does charge a broker fee, and if you need the vehicle shipped to your house, that's something extra you have to pay for. So those things can eat into your discounts, and you have to always remember to add back in your taxes and fees. But even with that, you're probably still saving like $4 grand off of MSRP with all that stuff included, while not having to deal with any dealer shenanigans, nitrogen filled tires, overinflated dealer fees. You don't have to deal with any of that stuff. You just buy the car, maybe get gap insurance, and then you get out. So that's nice. But real quick, let me just talk about these other trucks that you can potentially save on, and that is the Ram 1500, which AutoCompanion is offering 13% off MSRP on. A well-equipped Bighorn is going to be about 63 grand, 13% off. It's about $55,000. As you can see, that's still more expensive than a Tundra by a considerable margin. So that's one of the reasons why I would skip the Ram. And this also comes with a turbo inline-six engine. So all of these vehicles are becoming very disposable at this point. You got the Chevrolets and the GMCs. I mean, that's cool. It's got the 6.2 liter or 5.3 liter V8 engines. That's great. But as we all know, those engines, they come with cylinder deactivation. So they took a perfectly good engine and they ruined that. So now that's just as disposable as everything else. But there's another truck that everyone forgets about, and that is the Nissan Titan. I'm not sure what kind of deals and discounts can be had on those. AutoCompanion does represent Nissan, but he never advertises Titan deals. I don't know why, but I think this is going to be the last model year for that truck. I have heard that even the Titan V8 has some type of like cylinder, like 7th cylinder issue or something. So even with that, there are some potential problems. Some people say that it's been fixed, others say it hasn't. I'm not really sure what to trust on that. Regardless, the Titan does come with one of the longest new truck warranties, so that's something else to consider if you actually like that truck, or if you enjoy driving it and you're able to get a deep discount on it, that's something else to consider. I personally don't really like the Titan. I don't like how it looks. It drives kind of average, and I would personally rather have more pleasure driving a Ram or a new Tundra, to be honest with you. And maybe someone can comment down below regarding Nissan serviceability, how the Nissan dealerships are treating you when you have issues. I would like to hear more about that. I'm assuming it's going to be kind of similar to Ford Ram and Chevy. So yeah, service is one of the big reasons why I would stick with the Tundra. When issues occur, I'm pretty confident that a Toyota dealership will be able to take care of it. And if you get a 2024, it seems like you should be having less issues. Apparently the hybrid Tundras and the hybrid Sequoias, they don't really have any crazy issues. There's never been any reports of the engine debris or anything like that. But I would personally skip the hybrids just to reduce the complexity and the weight of the vehicle, because the heavier the vehicle becomes, the more easier it is for it to crash over bumps. So to maintain a smoother ride and have lighter weight, I would just stick with a regular Tundra, honestly. But yes, if you wanted a hybrid, it is available to you. It is very powerful. And there are also hefty discounts on hybrid Tundras as well if you buy through Jim. Yeah, Jim's information, his phone number will be in the description box. Same thing with AutoCompanion's information. AutoCompanion is located in Washington, D.C. He can also ship nationwide. And he also said that he will take some money off of his broker fee if you sign up with my affiliate link in the description box below. That stuff will be down there. But I hope my reasoning for everything made sense to you, and hopefully you appreciated these resources, because I'm also going to have a free leasing calculator linked in the description box below. No one in the mainstream really talks about these things, and I understand that a full-size truck purchase is very important to a lot of people, and that's why I wanted to make this video addressing my thoughts on these trucks, because the reality is, no matter what's going on with these vehicles, these are trucks at the end of the day, and they will have amazing resale value. And this is part of the reason why I bring up leasing. Yes, it might be unorthodox to some, but we live in a world where things are continuing to get more and more expensive while the quality continues to keep going down. But at the same time, we don't really have a choice. If we need a vehicle, we simply have to rely on these manufacturers, and you have to choose between one of these car companies to buy your vehicle from. Some people will say, oh, I'm just going to buy a used Tundra. Well, personally, I don't really think it's that wise paying these overinflated used car prices and paying like 10 or 15% in interest to finance a used car. And people say this because they get the sticker shock when they see these new trucks, when they see $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. But many of them don't understand that nobody pays the sticker price. As I just showed you, you can take between $8,000 to $12,000 off the MSRP on a new Tundra. So you're getting the vehicle at a deep discount. If you do a low interest rate lease, at the end of 3 years, there's a very high likelihood that you're going to have positive equity due at the end of the lease. For instance, that $59,000 SR5 I talked about, if you did the MSDs and you leased it for 3 years, that's going to cost you about 20 grand. Vehicle costs you 51,000. And the residual value at the end of 3 years is $40,000. Assuming you don't put 20 million miles on this truck in 3 years, there's a good chance that this vehicle is going to be worth more than $40,000. If it's worth like 45 grand and you're able to, sell it at CarMax or another Toyota dealership, then you just pocketed 5 grand. That means your total lease cost you like $15,000 over the course of 3 years. Again, that's hypothetical, that's not guaranteed. I'm just saying, during the pandemic, when my father had both of those trucks I talked about, the 2021 Tundra and the Ram 1500, he literally made money on both of those vehicles. Why? Because that market was ridiculous. People were able to buy a new car, drive it for a few months, dump it, and make more money. We obviously don't live in those times anymore. Right now, it would be more advantageous to keep the vehicle for the duration of the lease or your finance and capitalize on the high resale value. And during that time, you were driving a new vehicle with no mileage on it under full factory warranty with no real headaches to you. You see what I'm saying? I'm not saying that this is perfect and that this is the only way, but this is a way that I'm showing you. If you have a more brilliant idea, leave it in the comment section below. I would like to hear your solution to combat this ridiculous market with overinflated vehicles that are losing out on quality every year. I would like to hear what you would do. And I'm assuming if you're buying a full-size truck, you might even have a business. Writing off a new vehicle lease against your taxes is one of the ultimate hacks. Obviously, you can talk to your own accountant about that because I'm not authorized to talk about these things, but I think you know the drill by now. Making 100 grand through a W-2 versus making 100 grand with a 1099, those are two completely different incomes. I'll just put it that way. The business owner is actually incentivized to go out and get the latest car, the latest MacBook, the latest iPhone. They're incentivized to do these things, whereas the employee, not so much. Now there's pros and cons to both. Once again, you can talk to your own accountant about that. But yeah, purchasing vehicles through a business, very powerful, writing these things off, and they simply go out and they get a bank statement loan whenever they want to get a mortgage on a property. In fact, they don't even need to have 2 years of income to show. There are some banks that will even give you a house with 1 year of bank statements. All of this is information that you will absolutely never get anywhere else. In fact, one person even asked me why I don't charge money for sharing this content. I understand why he says that, because when I tell you these things in a free YouTube video, you discard it. You think this is just a game, or for whatever reason it doesn't work. You don't take any of this stuff seriously. But if you purchase like a course for $2,000 and you hear the same information, you take it more seriously. I don't know, maybe I'll write a book or something. We'll see. But I simply love my audience too much to not share this information with you. I am a consumer like the rest of you. I have been researching ways to purchase these automobiles to make it not only affordable, but suffer the least amount of loss when you go to sell the vehicle. And sometimes leasing is not the answer. If the lease has too high of an interest rate, then it's not worth it. I would actually try to do a low interest rate finance instead. Sometimes they offer like 0% or 2% interest for 36 months. I would actually rather do that if you can afford those payments than doing a high interest rate lease. Leasing is not always the answer. It just happens to be with the Tundra and with the Ram because of the lower interest. So you can leave your $50K at the bank and collect like 5% interest on that money, which is like, I don't know, almost $200 a month. I would rather collect that money and do a cheap lease on one of these vehicles. Again, these are the solutions that I happen to find. If you want to play with the used market, you're more than welcome to. It's just that the problem I found with the used car market is even if you buy an older generation Tundra in the hopes of you finding a quality product made with an old school ideology, I understand that you want a quality vehicle for your money. It's just that those quality old school dinosaur products like the previous Tundras, Tacos, and like my 4Runner, they suffer from other issues like rust and disintegrating itself, because that's what cars do. They don't last forever. They will eventually rot and die. And that's part of the reason why, even if you own a fully paid off car, you're never technically out of a car payment, because eventually you will have to replace that used car for whatever reason, whether it has a really expensive maintenance or repair bill that pops up, or God forbid, it gets totaled in an accident, or it simply starts to rot and degrade itself, then you have to replace it with another vehicle. So I get that people are going against that, oh, you'll own nothing and be happy agenda. You're trying to fight against that. I understand. But regarding the automobile, I don't necessarily need to own that. Same thing with phones and computers. If there was some type of leasing opportunity for iPhones and MacBooks, I would actually do that. Except I don't think there's any good programs like that which exist. You would have to just pay cash for your phone and then sell it after 2 years to upgrade to the next phone. That seems to be the best play regarding phones and computers. But with a car, there are actual low interest rate deals that can be had. This is one of the only reasons why I would lease a car, because even with the paid for used car, you would have to save up for your next vehicle anyway, because you have to replace the car that you're currently driving. So in my eyes, you're never technically out of a payment. if that makes sense. Not to mention the lack of safety with a used car, the quality of life, all of these other things that you can't quite put a dollar amount on that nobody else talks about. These are some of the other reasons why I would still stick with a new car if possible. But that's just my 2 cents. If you found value with this information, please consider liking and subscribing. If you want to work with Jim or AutoCompanion, their info will be in the description box as well. And if you're an owner of one of these trucks, let us know in the comment section below how it's been holding up for you and how you like it. But thank you so much for watching. Take care and goodbye.